So in today's lecture, we'll be more focused on NGO because the work of NGO and disaster management is very important. Like in previous chapter, we have discussed about local authorities. So work of local authorities is very important. In same manner, the work of NGOs at the time of any disaster is very important. इसमें हम लोग को points भी है. In syllabus, we have one topic that is work done by different NGOs and different types of disasters. So we'll discuss that also. यहाँ तक हम लोग ने डिस्कस किया था अप टू रोल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट. तो ये मैंने उस दिन समझाया तुम लोग को. कैलेमिटी रिलीफ फंड होता है जिसमें से सेंट्रल का कंट्रीब्यूशन होता है 75%, while state government contributes about 25%. तो यहाँ तक क्लियर हो गया था. In this particular topic, मैं कुछ तुम लोग को नोट्स नहीं दे रहा हूँ. Whatever important point you feel, you have to note down. मैं अलग से कुछ लिखवाने नहीं वाला हूँ. Okay. And again, this is very important slide. Already we have studied in previous topics. What is the legal framework and acts for disaster management? In fourth chapter, we have discussed about that. So as we know, सबसे पहले क्या आया था? हाई पावर कमिटी in 1999. By that high power committee, they submitted one report. So before that report, until 2001, the responsibility of disaster management was with agricultural ministry only. कोई भी टाइप का डिजास्टर रहने दो, that is taken care by agricultural committee or ministry only. So after 2002, June 2002, it was transferred to Ministry of Home Affairs, and then Home Affairs divided into different ministries. And this point is very important because इसके बाद actually we started focusing on disaster management at different levels. Before that, एक ही committee था, that is your agricultural ministry, was taking care of all type of disasters. As we know, Disaster Management Act was passed in December 2005, and this act is mandates the state executive committee at different levels with the responsibility to advise, assist, and coordinate with the activities of NGOs engaged in disaster management. So to help and assist and coordinate with NGOs, we have state executive committee that is on different level. At every state we have different committee, and that committee will work with coordination with NGOs at different level, at state level, at taluka level, at local levels for the disaster management. So also we can see here we have a control or assist of government organization to help NGOs. So NGOs separately भी work करते हैं individually, but many a times they require some assessment and coordination with government as well. So if there is a proper communication and coordination between government and non-government organizations, then and only then there will be a good disaster management and mitigation measures to be given to people or the society. Then we have the National Policy in Disaster Management 2009. That is for non-government organizations will be engaged to empower the community and generate awareness through their respective institutional mechanisms. So in this act, that is in 2009, actually some importance is given to NGOs. That we come to know, NGOs are important part of disaster management organizations, and they can help us in increasing capacity by continuous programs like education, training, seminars, webinars on different types of hazards and their mitigation measures. Also, NGOs can work in different environment, different level, and with all types of communities. That's the reason it is very important. Sorry, and that's the reason NGOs are very important at every level. तो किसी ने फाइंड आउट किया what are the different NGOs working in their locality? बोला था मैंने लास्ट टू लास्ट लेक्चर कि तुम्हारे यहाँ पे कौन सा लोकल अथॉरिटीज है और एनजीओज है दोज हु आर वर्किंग फॉर डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट. किया किसी ने थोड़ा सर्च? हाँ किसी नहीं, इधर ही ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं. एनीवन कुछ पता है? हाँ भी बताओ. क्योंकि इन दिस चैप्टर वी हैव टू डिस्कस अबाउट डिफरेंट एनजीओज एंड देयर वर्क आल्सो. उसके ऊपर भी एक क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. What are the different NGOs working in India for disaster management? What are their works? तो तुम लोग को उसमें एग्जांपल्स देने पड़ेंगे एक दो. इसमें से रीड करके बताओ ना एक दो. पीडीएफ पूरा शेयर करने की जरूरत नहीं है. एक दो नाम बता दो एनजीओज के एंड देयर लोकेशन. See, we have different type of NGOs. सब NGOs डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट का काम करते ऐसा नहीं है. They have their own goals and objectives. Vipin is sharing. Till then, we'll discuss further slide to save our time. Now, this slide is again important. Some legal aspects related to finance raising as well as overall management of disaster. See, any organization or authority or any process of work should be guided by proper legal aspects. If you are not doing any work in a legal manner, then that will not be considered. अगर NGOs भी काम कर रहे हैं तो they have to follow some rules and regulations from the government of India, and they have to act in legal manner. Otherwise, they will not be allowed to work in that particular location. So, for example, some affected area is there. पुलिस आके सील कर देते हैं वो एरिया. So it is not allowed to any unauthorized person to enter that particular premises. But at the same time, when NGOs are working in that particular area, they have taken permission from government or local authorities, and then and only then they are allowed to perform in that particular area. Yes, सूरज ने बताया है कुछ. हाँ, इंडियन रेड क्रॉस राइट ये है. रामकृष्ण मिशन. यश, you're talking about which area? Very good. Right. Some of the NGOs are working on national, international level as well, whereas many of them are working at a local level only. And that NGOs are very helpful at the time of particular disaster for that particular community and society. दैट्स द रीजन मैंने तुम लोग को ये टास्क बोला कि ये फाइंड आउट करो इन योर पर्टिकुलर एरिया. जैसे इसने परफेक्ट बोला है मुंबई सबब में आर साउथ वार्ड में these are the NGOs who are currently working active. It is not necessary कि all them are working for disaster management only. There are different works to be carried out by NGO that will be discussed in further slides. Okay, National Human Rights Committee of India. Good. We go in every location we have different NGOs and their work is also different. Okay, very good. So जिन्होंने नहीं किया है, at least after today's lecture, go and find out the different NGOs working at your location as well as government organizations and at least note down their phone numbers. At the time of any hazardous situation or any type of different emergencies, you can call them and ask for help. Very good. ये जो तुम लोग अभी गूगल कर रहे हो वो पहले से करके रखते तो अच्छा होता. ओके अभी गूगल छोड़ दो. कम बैक टू लेक्चर. पीपीडी में हम डिस्कस करते हैं. So the financial aspect of disaster risk management ranges from a developing planning to immediate relief. This I have already discussed. Risk management का मतलब ये नहीं है कि only provide immediate relief. It starts from development of planning, that is your first phase, till the last phase, that is again rehabilitation. तो वो जो cycle था which we have discussed, mitigation cycle. So whatever fund or disaster management team is there, it has to work from starting from development of planning to immediate relief, post disaster followed by the इन्वेस्टमेंट मेड बाय रिकंस्ट्रक्शन. तो उन लोगों को पूरा देखना है स्टार्टिंग से प्लानिंग से लेके रिकंस्ट्रक्शन. एवरीथिंग वी हैव टू follow and plan accordingly. And as per the practice, the funds for preparedness, then mitigation and reconstruction are allocated by the government as per part of budgetary allocation. So whatever fund you require, that will be given by government at the time of budgetary allocation. जो बजट निकलता है every year for 5 years, in that only we have mentioned all the funds required for preparedness, mitigation and reconstruction. Now how will you estimate the amount of fund required? So according to the history of that particular location, state or district, which type of disasters happening over there and what type of preparedness and mitigation measures we have to take place, and whatever the cost of construction in that particular area. Accordingly, some budget is already allotted for that particular area. And if that budget is not used in that particular area, it remains with them and they can use it next year. But there is some limitations within that period you have to use. Otherwise, क्या होता है? That fund will be transferred to some other locations wherever it is required. And state government has to make balance between all this credit and debit. तो ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए. For example, we have two regions, Mumbai and New Bombay. Okay. So some sort of disasters that take place in Mumbai region. Whatever funds available for Mumbai region has been exhausted, has been utilized to full. Now we are using fund of New Bombay, or you can say we are taking help from there. So while doing so, We have to take care that if in the future if there is any type of disaster in New Bombay region also, so we should have a sufficient amount left for mitigation of that particular disaster. तो ऐसा नहीं कर सकते कि you are exhausting all the fund in single type of location or single type of disaster. हम लोग को उसको रखना ही पड़ता है. And that also we have discussed in previous lectures, 10%, 25%, then again 10%. Okay. And then we have a committee made by government regarding the fund as recommended by a finance commission. That is nothing but your high committee. High level committee will take care of immediate relief that we have discussed already. And also the government should allot some amount of funds to every ministry or department that is working for different disasters. The list of that ministries we already have with us. So government will allot them some amount of fund for their regular planning, R&D, as well as for their search and rescue operations. Then we have two main windows, or you can say two main arrangements of fund for disaster management. And generally, we talk about natural disasters only. So there are two funds, that is Calamity Relief Fund and second, National Calamity Contingencies Fund. These two funds are reserved for any type of calamity. तो ये दो फंड्स है हमारे पास अलग से that we have reserved. Now what is Calamity Relief Fund? These funds are dedicated funds used by the state governments to meet the expenditure for providing immediate relief to victims of cyclone, drought, earthquake, flood, fire, hailstorm, tsunami, landslide, cloudburst and pest attack. ये हम लोग ने पहले भी डिस्कस किया था. This type of disaster under state government response fund for immediate relief. तो वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का फंड कहाँ से आता है? That is known as Calamity Relief Fund, and it is fully dedicated fund that can be used by state government. अब इसका मतलब क्या होता है? Dedicated fund means this fund cannot be used for any other purposes. ये इतना minimum fund are reserved for this purpose only, for the mitigation purpose only or providing immediate relief. ये फंड हम लोग कहीं और यूज नहीं करेंगे. That's why it is known as dedicated funds. And many a time we have a state fund जो reserve fund होता है, that can be used for any other purposes as well. But this fund we have to use for immediate relief only. तो वो भी किसके लिए? So you can note down these points. So these are all natural hazards which can be converted into disasters. तो इसके लिए we use. Other than this, if there is any type of disaster, then there are some special provisions. It targets immediate relief measure and exclude what? Measures for mitigation or post-calamity reconstruction. That's why it is known as what? Relief fund. So this fund can be used for only immediate relief. उसके प्लानिंग में भी यूज नहीं कर सकते, नॉट फॉर द मिटिगेशन ऑल्सो और फॉर पोस्ट कैलेमिटी रिकंस्ट्रक्शन. For that reason, we have different funds reserved, and that is included in state government budgetary. This fund is only useful for immediate relief at state levels. So the Calamity Relief Fund have been merged with State Disaster Response Fund and has, so as we have discussed already, State Disaster Response Fund. Now these both funds are merged together, but the single advantage is what? This Calamity Relief Fund is dedicated for immediate relief only, so that in any type of disaster, will be having this much of minimum amount with us for giving immediate release for the particular level of hazard. So एक limit तक we can give immediate relief. Then we have to use different funds for its mitigation as well as for reconstruction. So what is National Calamity Contingencies Fund and how will they give or from where? What are the sources to get fund to this National Calamity Contingencies Fund? It is again a dedicated fund maintained by the Government of India for supplementing the disaster relief efforts of various state governments. So as we discussed, if the funds of state government get exhausted, then national government will provide some help from this National Calamity Contingencies Fund. It is given to various state government and is operated under the broad framework laid down by 11th Finance Commission. तो ये कहाँ से आया था and from where? It has its importance from 11th Finance Commission. Till then, there was no such different funding for calamity contingencies at national level. So after 11th Finance Commission, from their suggestions, started the some dedicated fund towards National Calamity Contingencies Fund. It has some transactions. These figures are varying every year. From where they are getting this type of fund? तो कहाँ से मिलता था? So we have some contingented duty imposed on toxic materials like cigars, cigarettes, pan masala, BDs, or other tobacco products, and it has been merged with what? National Disaster Response Fund from the effect of 1st of April. So here you can see, now we all know that we have banned tobaccos, pan masalas. Right? So why it takes so long? क्योंकि तुम लोगों ने देखा होगा, the proposal was passed 5 years before only, but implement करने में it took 5 to 10 years. Why it is happening? Because of this reason only. Because whatever extra duty or you can say tax they are paying on this tobacco products was a main source of funding for central government. So till we are getting some other source of income, we cannot let it go. And that's the main reason the implementation में इतना time लगा. But now they have implemented it. Still, in illegal ways, you can get all these tobacco products. That is illegal now. So before it, it was legal to sell all type of tobacco products, but now it is illegal. In the same manner, if you see many of you having this question, why alcohol shops was open in lockdown? That is the only reason, because from that particular business, government is getting maximum fund, and this economic crisis, government also required fund. वो fund आने के लिए they have to start some businesses from where they will get maximum funding. That is the reason. This we have already discussed. National Disaster Response Fund. Short में देख लेते एक बार वापस. And you can see, अगर किसी ने उस दिन note down नहीं किया होगा, you can note down this point. उसमें से important point है. As we know, state government is primarily responsible for undertaking rescue as well as relief and rehabilitation measures in the event of any natural disaster. At some times, it is very required to take and strengthen and supplement the central assistance whenever the impact of that particular disaster is very high, so that the state government cannot respond to that particular disaster with the resources available with them, and at the time they require support from national, or you can say central assistance. So as per this procedure, the state government is required to submit a memorandum indicating the sector-wise damage and requirement of funds. This point is very important for taking help from National Disaster Response Fund. State government has to submit a memorandum in that they have to include a sector-wise damage as well as whatever funds required. Then a interministerial central team will come and assess a particular sector-wise damage, and then they will submit their report to the National Executive Committee, and then high-level committee will decide what amount of immediate relief to be provided for particular state. तो ऐसे वो वर्क होता है. That is the procedure. Now at the time of NDRF, now we are discussing about the role of different organizations in disaster management. Flow में जाएंगे because इसके बाद NGO आएगा last point, and that is the main topic to be discussed. So role of NDRF, we have already write down a short note of NDRF. इसमें दो होते हैं important work to be carried out. That is at the time of disaster, that is during disaster and post disaster. If we take the latest example of Mahar building that is collapsed, 5-floor building. So there they require search and rescuers. So for that purpose, NDRF team was there, was working for search for rescue operation. So that is during disaster. So they have to provide a high-tech specialist response during search and rescue the victims and provide immediate relief with available man and material in affected areas. So as we have discussed, in search and resource we require tools, resources and time. These three things we required. That is nothing but whatever available man, that is resources we have and the material in that particular area, because we have to provide immediate relief. So we should have a list of hospitals, equipments, vendors in that particular locality. And then post disaster, to assist state in the recovery, maintenance of normalcy and the area of disaster. Because after disaster also we have to go for reconstruction and rehabilitation of victims, and in that also NDRF has to play a very important role. So these are the two main roles to be performed by NDRF. Now, we have discussed about the role and responsibility of NDRF in previous topic also. Here, what are their capabilities and strength and why they are important? This is the reason they are capable in collapse structure search and rescue operation. जैसे मैंने अभी latest example दिया. If any building or structure get collapsed, so they have the capacity and training in collapse structure search and rescue operation, and that's why NDRF is important. We call NDRF. Then men are trained in flood and mountain rescue operations as well. So कहीं पे भी flood होता है, news में भी आता है ना, NDRF team is over there. So we have deployed NDRF team. Why? This is the reason again. Then each unit has deep drivers, then they have high mobility because they can reach to any particular hazardous area. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि they are restricted to particular zone. They can reach to any point. Then the team, or you can say unit, has different specialized manpower, that is engineers, doctors, nurses, technicians, electricians, etc., which will makes it highly specialized professional force. As you can see, we have all type of specialized persons in a particular unit, so that कौन सा भी type का disaster हो, they all are given a particular common training for search and rescue operation. So as we can see, engineers, electricians and technicians can help in search and rescue operation, and doctors and nurses will give them immediate relief, or you can say immediate medication whatever required. Then there are authorization and presence of highly specialized equipment as well, because resources are very important. If we have old resources, or you can say the resources which are not useful nowadays, then again they will be consuming more time in search and rescue. So NDRF team have highly specialized equipments as well, and you can say cutters, or we require some good light at the time of search in night vision, the night vision glasses they required. Whatever specialized equipment required are with NDRF team. Then they also have a dog squad, which will be helpful in search and rescue operations. These numbers which you are see over here, that may vary according to a particular unit, and all the men are trained in medical first responder. That is very important. ऐसा नहीं है कि इंजीनियर है, इलेक्ट्रिशियन या टेक्नीशियन है, so they know their job only. All are trained in medical first responder, and that is very important at the time of any disaster. So this is the capabilities and strength of NDRF. इसलिए हम लोग NDRF को बुलाते हैं. That is about what नेशनल लेवल कमेटी कहाँ से फंड आता है, and which organization is working for disaster management. When we talk about state level, already discuss किया हम लोग ने, we have a state disaster response fund. This point all of we know that state disaster response fund shall be used only for what? Expenditure for providing immediate relief to victims of natural disaster. But state can draw from state disaster response fund for any emergency response and relief. So there are special provisions and adjustment for the expenses against funds released from National Disaster Response Fund. So whatever fund is available for immediate relief, we can also use for response and relief in some cases wherever it is very emergency, and then we can balance this when we get help from National Disaster Response Fund. So more or less we have to balance the things. Credit and debit should be balanced by state government. In case the same state force faces another severe disaster during the same year, so no reduction will be made while releasing assistance from the National Disaster Response Fund. This we have already discussed in first lecture only. तो कोई भी टाइप का अगर डिजास्टर वापस आता है, सपोज अ पर्टिकुलर स्टेट इज फेसिंग 2 or 3 disasters in single year, so they will get help from National Disaster Response Fund without reduction and that has to be balanced in later years. वो बाद में बैलेंस होता है. Now here, from here onwards, some important slides are there. और ये अभी तुम लोग नोट डाउन कर लो, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट एनजीओज एंड वो किसके लिए काम करते हैं. That will form a very important notes. So various NGOs and the work they have carried out in past on occurrence of various disasters. These are some top 5 NGOs who has worked in past for various disaster at state and national level as well. So there is Rapid Response, then United Way, Smile Foundation, Care India, Helping Hand, and many more are there. So what are such type of NGOs and what are their role and who has founded them and what is their foundation year, we'll discuss in one video. तो एक वीडियो दिखा रहा हूँ, उसमें you can note down the name, founder का name and the establishment year. तो उसमें वो they have explained what are actually their aim and for what purpose they are working. That is very important. We should know what is the actual purpose of working of a particular NGO.
एंड फैसिलिटी के आधार पे वर्ल्ड लेवल पर अपनी पहचान बनाई और इसके लिए उन्होंने बहुत सारे प्राइजेज, बहुत सारे अवार्ड भी गेन किए. उन 10 टॉप मोस्ट एनजीओज के नाम आज इस वीडियो में मैं आपको बताने जा रही हूँ. सो नाउ फर्स्ट वन इज हेल्प एज इंडिया. हेल्प एज इंडिया इंडिया के टॉप मोस्ट 10 एनजीओज में से फर्स्ट नंबर पे इसके फाउंडर है श्री सर्वपल्ली राधाकृष्णन एंड उनके कुछ पार्टनर. इस एनजीओ का स्टेबलाइजेशन ईयर 1978 है और इसका एम है एज पर्सन्स की हेल्प करना. मीन्स ऐसे एज पर्सन, ऐसे वृद्ध व्यक्ति जो कि अपनी लाइफ को सरवाइव करने में अनेबल है, उनकी हेल्प करना. और ये एनजीओ लोकेटेड है दिल्ली में, यानी दिल्ली में इसकी मेन लोकेशन है और इसकी वेबसाइट है helpindia.org. एंड सेकेंड वन इज स्माइल फाउंडेशन. स्माइल फाउंडेशन की फाउंडर है संतानु मिश्रा और इसका स्टेबलाइजेशन ईयर 2002. इसका एम है चाइल्ड एजुकेशन, इंडिया में चाइल्ड एजुकेशन देना है, इंडिया में चाइल्ड लेबर को ख़त्म करना is the aim of Smile Foundation. एंड इसकी लोकेशन है दिल्ली में एंड वेबसाइट इज दैट smilefoundation.org. एंड थर्ड वन इज गुंज लिमिटेड. गुंज लिमिटेड के फाउंडर है मिस्टर अंशु गुप्ता और इसका फाउंडेशन ईयर है 1999. एंड इसका जो एम है वो है पुअर चाइल्ड, जितने भी पुअर बच्चे होते हैं उनको क्लॉथ्स देना, उनको कपड़े प्रोवाइड कराना. ये इस एनजीओ का एम है और इसकी लोकेशन है दिल्ली में एंड इसकी वेबसाइट है गूंज.org. एंड इम्पॉर्टेंट बात इज दैट कि गूंज लिमिटेड को अपने इस काम के लिए अवार्ड भी मिल चुका है, रेमंड मैक्सिस अवार्ड, जो कि बहुत ही बड़ा अवार्ड है एशिया का. ये गूंज लिमिटेड को मिल चुका है. एंड फोर्थ वन इज क्राई एनजीओ. क्राई मीन्स चाइल्ड राइट्स एंड यू. इसका स्टेबलाइजेशन हुआ था ईयर 79 में. इसके फाउंडर है रिपन कपूर. एंड इसका एम है बच्चों के अधिकार के लिए लड़ना, मतलब बच्चों को उनके अधिकार देना, इसके अलावा उनको एजुकेशन, फूड, हेल्थ प्रोवाइड कराना। इसकी लोकेशन है मुंबई में एंड वेबसाइट है cry.org एंड योर नेक्स्ट फिफ्थ वन इज गिव इंडिया। गिव इंडिया एनजीओ का स्टेबलाइजेशन ईयर है 1999 एंड इसके फाउंडर है वेंकट कृष्णन। गिव इंडिया एनजीओ अपने आप में एक बहुत ही स्पेशल एनजीओ है, क्योंकि ये एनजीओ बनकर उन एनजीओ के लिए काम करता है जो एनजीओ है लेकिन उनके पास फंड की कमी हो और वो अपनी सोशल एक्टिविटीज नहीं कर पाते, तो उन एनजीओ को फंड देने के लिए गिव इंडिया एनजीओ पूरे वर्ल्ड से फंड कलेक्ट करता है ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड, और उस फंड को वो उन एनजीओ को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करता है जो एनजीओ फंड की कमी की वजह से अपने एनजीओ को कंटिन्यू नहीं रख पाते। सो ये इस एनजीओ का वर्क है, इस एनजीओ का एम है। तो गिव इंडिया एनजीओ इज रियली अ वेरी स्पेशल एनजीओ एंड इसकी लोकेशन है मुंबई में एंड वेबसाइट है giveindia.org एंड नाउ नेक्स्ट सिक्स वन इज नन्ही कली एनजीओ। इसका स्टेबलाइजेशन ईयर 1996 और इसे आनंद महिंद्रा के द्वारा स्टेबलाइज किया गया था। इसका जो एम है वो है इनकरेज गर्ल्स एजुकेशन, यानी गर्ल्स एजुकेशन को बढ़ावा देना, उन्हें एम्पावर करना, और इसकी लोकेशन है मुंबई में एंड वेबसाइट है nannikali.org एंड सेवन वन इज सरगम संस्था। सरगम संस्था के ऑर्गेनाइजर है मिस्टर अजित कुमार। सरगम संस्था के फाउंडर है मिस्टर अजित कुमार एंड ईयर 1986 में इसका स्टेबलाइजेशन किया गया था एंड एम इज टू हेल्प एंड एजुकेट सोशल डिप्राइव्ड चाइल्ड एंड हेल्प देम टू अचीव देयर फुलेस्ट पोटेंशियल। मीन्स ऐसे बच्चे जो सामाजिक रूप से सक्षम नहीं है शिक्षा और उनके जो राइट्स है उसके लिए, तो उसके लिए उन्हें वो सारे राइट्स और एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड कराना जिसके लिए वो सामाजिक रूप से सक्षम नहीं है। एंड इसकी लोकेशन है लखनऊ में एंड वेबसाइट इज sargamsanstha.com एंड योर नेक्स्ट वन इज सम्मान फाउंडेशन। सम्मान फाउंडेशन इसकी स्टेबलाइजेशन हुआ था ईयर 2007 में, इसके फाउंडर ने इरफान आलम, और इसका एम है ऐसे गरीब लोग जिनके पास कोई भी जॉब नहीं है उनके लिए जॉब क्रिएट करना, उन्हें सेल्फ डिपेंड बनाना। ये सम्मान फाउंडेशन का एम है और इसीलिए इसका नाम रखा गया है सम्मान फाउंडेशन, क्योंकि जिन लोगों के पास जॉब नहीं होता, जिन लोगों के पास इनकम जनरेशन का कोई सोर्स नहीं होता, उन्हें इस सोसाइटी में सम्मान नहीं मिलता, तो उन्हें सम्मान देना, उनके लिए जॉब क्रिएट करना, उनके लिए इनकम के सोर्स क्रिएट करना, इस सम्मान फाउंडेशन का एम है। इसकी लोकेशन है पटना में और इसकी वेबसाइट है सम्मान.org एंड नाउ नेक्स्ट नाइन्थ वन इज प्रथम। प्रथम एनजीओ इसका स्टेबलाइजेशन ईयर था 1994 एंड माधव चवन के द्वारा इसका स्टेबलाइजेशन किया गया था। इसका भी एम है चाइल्ड एजुकेशन, मतलब बच्चों को एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड करना। इसकी लोकेशन है मुंबई में एंड वेबसाइट इज pratham.org एंड योर लास्ट वन इज लेप्रा सोसाइटी। लेप्रा सोसाइटी का स्टेबलाइजेशन ईयर है 1989 और इसका जो एम है वो है पॉवर्टी को दूर करना, लोगों को बेटर हेल्थ प्रोवाइड कराना है। सबसे मेन जो एम है वो है लेप्रोसी। मीन्स लेप्रोसी एक डिसीज होती है, वो डिसीज को इंडिया से एकदम ख़त्म कर देना लेप्रा सोसाइटी का काम है। और ये लेप्रा सोसाइटी इसके अलावा बहुत सारे डिसीज के लिए हेल्प देती है, लाइक लेप्रोसी, मलेरिया, लिम्फेटिक, टीबी, HIV, एड, ब्लाइंडनेस, अदर्स, इन सारे डिसीज से सफ़र जो लोग कर रहे हैं उन लोगों के लिए लेप्रा सोसाइटी का एनजीओ ओपन किया गया। इसकी जो लोकेशन है वो है आंध्र प्रदेश में एंड इसकी वेबसाइट है leprasociety.org and these all are
So as we can see, there are different NGOs working for different cause. उसमें तुम लोग ने एक NGO नोट किया होगा, that is working for providing funds for different NGOs. See, you can see how noble work they are doing. They are providing funds to small or different NGOs which are lack of fund by collecting fund from all over the world. And then all the different NGOs are working for employment, health, education, and for better living of society and community. Some are working for old age people, some are working for kids, some are working for providing education, good health. So we have different organizations, and all these organizations also work at the time of any hazardous situation. So these are the most organizations working in India for different sectors. Now our focus is on NGOs that are working for disaster management. As we are discussing, this top five NGOs are working for disaster management, or you can say for helping people and giving them relief at the time of disaster. So, starting with Rapid Response Foundation, or you can say NGO. Now, what is Rapid Response and what are their work? For this, again, we'll see one small video because videos are helpful and more informative than theoretical knowledge only. So, we'll discuss. Let us see one small video. As we can see, in 5 years only, their response to 11 disaster and help more than 4 lakh people. It is not that they are only supplying food, medicines, and water, as well as they are helping in search and rescue operation as well, and they are getting support from government organization as well. So when you are working for a noble cause, you will get help from other organizations as well as authorities in the form of funding or in the form of different resources. It's just you have to work for a good cause. So उन लोगों ने जैसे मेंशन किया था about Bihar floods. So there are some important disasters for which they have provided relief measures. So some of which will be discussed over here so that अगर एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन आता है you can give an example of rapid response. So this rapid response NGO has worked for Gujarat flood that is in 2017. Because of excessive rainfall, there was a condition of flood and a lot of people were affected. So what relief measures they have provided? So they are distributed food, sanitary kit for women and girls, that is very important. Free medical camp were organized because after flooding there are more chances of contamination of water, as well as because of which there are chances of many diseases, and for that reason we have to go for regular checkup. So they provide free medical care camps as well and shelter to many who lost their home or shelter because of flood. So this is for Gujarat flood. Then one more example. In the same year, Assam also faced flood in which there are many houses will get damaged, farmland, schools, bridges, and road links across Assam. And lakhs of people have been affected, and thousands of families are forced to take shelter on schools, highways, and temporary relief camps. So at that time, we provide them food packets, dry ration, bed kit for people. वीडियो में भी देखा था. Shelter kit for families, the education kit for children, free medical camp in villages were organized. See, food, water, it is important, but at the same time, we require shelter, medical facilities, and more important, education for children. In 2005 flood also, many of us has faced that our notebooks or books were drawn away because of flooding, and we require new education kits. So education is very important, and we have to keep in mind and give more importance for education at the time of post disaster as well. Reconstruction, rehabilitation, with that we require education. I guess this is it for today. We'll discuss slides in tomorrow's lecture.